saw a shift in the surge come like the fall. I think that was when it was, instead of trying to, build up staff, that didn't happen. And they relied on like the FEMA nurses and the nurses provided, FEMA's from the state, like they relied on that help instead of kind of revamping and like flexing their administrative power, like to see like what we could do. I mean, there was the nursing network runs deep, right? So it's like we have friends all over. We're like, hey, texting them like, hey, how are your COVID numbers? How are your, how's your staffing? And for her working at the VA turned into a humanitarian hospital, but that wasn't well known. So it's like, why is my hospital over like ripping at the seams? And she's like coming home telling me like, oh babe, we had like 5 patients on the floor, like, so like that was hard like to hear. Just hospitals like that just very much took advantage of the numbers, and
they would save money by it because like they could reach different registries for help, and her hospital only goes through a certain registry where they'll text them and be like, are there any nurses available? And there could be, but they'll say no, so that way it looks like they covered themselves, but really they're just going to keep them short-staffed just to save money.
And whoever backed that bill, I'm sorry, but mistakes happened. Lives were lost that didn't necessarily had to have been lost because of you have to look at the snowball effect of short staffing. When you short staff an ER, when you short staff and you give an ICU nurse 3 patients rather than 2, things are going to get missed, things are going to happen. And you have to remember that.
My sister, the ICU nurse, she had told me because they're so short staffed one night that 3 people coded at the same time and they had to choose who to go save. And that sucks because like, you shouldn't have to pick that.
You really look at, and maybe this part, like there's probably a lot that I shouldn't say too badly about my hospital if you're going to print what hospital I work at. But so if you look at the hospital I work at Riverside Community Hospital, the demographic of which I serve, right? Okay, so pay attention to the demographic of which I serve, but then look at fancy Loma Linda Hospital, look at Loma Linda and the demographic of which they serve. Were their nurses out of ratio as much as the Riverside nurses? So it's like and Redlands, look, Redlands has a beautiful hospital. They didn't see as much out of ratio as they weren't ripping at the seams, So it's you start questioning a lot of like why things are happening. And where her sister works for a Tenet facility, which is a large hospital corporation. I work for an HCA facility, which is again, a large hospital corporation who, gained a profit during a pandemic. You really start questioning, and that's where everyone's talking about, we need a systems change. But definitely we need a systems change. And what 2020 didn't teach us that. It just showed you on a more public platform, this problem has always existed, So there's things like that. Like the demographic I serve, I would say a good 75% or more Latino. So when I discharge this patient, just for example, the discharge paperwork I can give them education in Spanish. That paper that actually tells them what they have to do is only available to print out in one language.